1 and 2, and the intern makes 3. Welcome, everybody, to another fantastic episode of This Uncanny Earth, your weekly dose of everything you could love about the paranormal awesomeness that we see in our society today. As always, I am your illustrious host, Robert Solomon, and with me, got it right this time, check that bad boy
Yeah,
out,
I
is
gotta figure out about mirroring
Spider-Man.
my camera one of these days.
The
I'm
Spider-Man.
always pointing the opposite way.
Underneath, right there, tick, 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 like you're typing, your dad's typing on the keyboard. It's Steven, the intern. Steven the intern. Steven the intern, how we doing tonight, buddy?
Good.
What do you got?
Always here.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm always here.
Big shout out to James Boggs. James, how you doing, buddy? Tonight, gentlemen, we are going to discuss grays and abduction cases. Gentlemen, before we get into this conversation tonight, what do you guys know about grays? Like, where did you first hear about what we call grays? We'll start with Spider first. Spider, where did you first hear about grays and your fresh haircut?
I'm trying to think like maybe what the first moment would have been. Probably in a book, although I couldn't at this point tell you what book it was. It was a long time ago. The first modern actual mention of it was during the alien abduction or alien autopsy event that they did years and years ago, hosted by Jonathan Frakes. Like, it was a big deal. There was like they made it look like it was real with the shaky camera and the black and white and everything, cutting open the aliens and stuff, but it was all fake.
That was a Ray Santilli film. He went on to say that it like the film itself was a recreation of an actual event that had happened. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Yeah, they played it off like it was real, and everybody, like, I was at school, people like, "You gonna watch this thing? Oh man, I've seen the aliens. Oh man!" And I didn't see it at the time. I just knew that it was there. But years later, having gone back and watched it fully, I'm kind of like, okay, that's not real.
But
it's good special effects at the time.
What do you think about it being a recreation?
It's interesting. There's a lot of dramatizations of this kind of stuff, and there is a lot of accounts and a lot of descriptions of what they look like that's become the most common form of extraterrestrial being that usually filters into our collective consciousness. So I feel like, and in retrospect, we know that we've seen them on prehistoric art and things like that. There's been representations like that look like our modern interpretation of the gray aliens. So, but I don't know if I heard about the term grays until much later, because I don't know if the term was really in use as much then as it is now. I think they were just called aliens at the time, and it was like the most common depiction of aliens that you would find.
Why do you think that was? Like, where do you think in people's psyches, if they're not real, mind you, where in people's psyches do you think they pulled something like this from?
Part of it's the simplicity, because there's so few features on the classic gray alien. The classic gray alien is the big eyes, the slit nose, the slit mouth.
I'll pull up a pic for everybody to see, but please continue talking.
And no hair, no identifying scales or anything like that, just gray skin, spindly kind of. And it actually reminds me a little bit of old medieval stories of like goblins and kobolds and little short, like spindly creatures and things. So I think they took a couple of ideas of what something that would look different from us, but close enough to freak us out, kind of like an Uncanny Valley sort of situation.
Yes.
And that all generated what the classic image became, and what we all kind of accepted as, yeah, that's what they look like.
So, Steven, yourself, what do you know? Like, where was your first sort of experience with gray aliens? Trying to find a good picture, guys. Don't mind me.
I was born in '94, so Project Blue Book got shut down in '97. So I was like 3 years old, and they were already shutting down a lot of stuff, I feel like. So I don't really remember what my first instance was, but the first one that comes to mind when someone talks about aliens, the first thing that comes to my mind is obviously Destroy All Humans, the video game series.
Ah, yeah.
I don't know if those were supposed to be the gray aliens or not, but they called themselves Furons, and I really enjoyed the plot line they gave them, because everyone's always like, why do they come to Earth? Why do they care about humans? What's so important about us? And the video game actually tried to give a reason to that. And in the fictional plot line of the video game, they surmised that, maybe the aliens are coming here because they clone each other and they're trying to get our DNA. Because their DNA is starting to fade away from the repeated cloning, it's starting to deteriorate. So maybe they believe that, some people believe that maybe they're looking for our DNA because we're like a close relative of their ancestors.
Well, supposedly they're us in the future.
I've heard
this
that
theory
one too.
Yeah. There was a tape that went around a few years back of supposedly somebody talking to a gray alien. I don't know if any of you have seen this, where it talks about our future and what'll happen to our future. I don't know if either of you have seen this. I can send it to you. Obviously, I don't think it's real.
I feel like I have
heard it.
I feel like I have, but it's just one of those things that was kind of like, yeah, okay at the time, and I didn't commit it to memory because I kind of have a cynical attitude about a lot of that kind of stuff.
So do I, especially in this day and age of deep fakes and things. It's easy to pull something like that up and say it's a gray alien. What do you oh, James saw it. Okay, cool. Let me get these up here. Next question. What are your thoughts on abductions? Do you think they are legit, or do you think they are a state of psychosis? Do you think they're a state of mental disability? What do you two think that abduction cases are? We'll start with Spider first. Spider, what do you think?
I think something is happening. Whether every single instance can be attributed to some kind of an extraterrestrial or something like that, I think it's too widespread. And there's other circumstantial evidence around some of these things, like people come back with injuries, or other family members will see, oh yeah, they disappeared and then they came back and they're different than who they were. And then you have the implants situation and various things, which can go a few different directions as well. I find it interesting. A lot of these things have a lot in common. The problem with that, though, is by the time these stories started to come out is around the time when people had easy access of seeing other stories via the news or whatever. And a lot of it, I think, is copycat. I think there's a lot of stories that are copycat stories, but I do feel like there's some element of truth to a few of them. And because some of them can't be explained, there are several instances where, like, somebody, again, family members saw, hey, this person was gone. We didn't know where they were. We couldn't find them anywhere. And then they just showed back up and they had this story. And there's only so many places people can hide. Yeah, it's a big country, but if you're in an area that might not have like places you can actually hide in, like you might not be near a vast forest or something, when you come back, you don't have any indication that you've been in the woods, or so there's a few instances where I believe something did happen. Whether it's actually extraterrestrials or not, it's hard to say, but there is some compelling evidence out there.
Steven, thoughts?
So, I think it could be a little bit of both sometimes. Like Spider said, it was really popular in like pop culture and has been ingrained at this point so deeply in our psyche as a society that I feel like a lot of people are just going to start making up their own stories, like he said, and they're going to take details from stories they've seen and make their own stories just so that people will pay attention to them and they get their 15 minutes of shame or fame, whatever, however you want to look at it, or, and, but at the same time, some of these other cases, it's like really prominent figures who would have a lot to lose if they came out with a story like this. So it's like, why would they? Why would they make something up like this? And like he mentioned, some of the stuff is unexplainable. Like for me, one thing that stands out to me that, makes me think, well, regardless, like Spider said, regardless of whether it's aliens or, government conspiracy or whatever, whatever is happening, something is obviously happening, because a lot of these people will come back with missing time, broken electronics, like electronics that don't work. And even some people will come back with radiation on their car and stuff. So like, where does all that come from if it was all in their head?
Gentlemen, it has been proposed that in the early 19, well, I'd say like the middle 1900s, Eisenhower supposedly made a deal to the gray aliens themselves and told them, you can abduct as many people as you want, for the most part. In exchange, we'll let you, we want some of that technology. And the Greys, they're the ones who offered it to Eisenhower, and Eisenhower emphatically said yes. What are your thoughts regarding Eisenhower and the supposed deal he made with the Greys? Why would Greys, and this is going to be a two-part here, so answer both of these. Why would Greys want to abduct us, to study us, if only because we are like them in some form or fashion? Spider.
There's a lot of good reasons, and some of them you can point to history, and some of them you can kind of run through a lot of hypothetical exercises in your mind about it. But if a species is more advanced, we know as a species ourselves that we have experimented many times on the various animal species throughout our planet, whether it's been for good or for bad or for helpful or not, is kind of beside the point. We've done that, and we still do on a certain level. We're still trying to clone things. We're still trying to do. Good point from James. And we always try to check how animals work to try to see if we can figure out how to help ourselves work and things like that. So it stands to reason that a supposedly more advanced species than us would want to study us for similar reasons, either for curiosity or anything like that. The popular question, or the popular answer to that sometimes, is why would they come all this way if they come from somewhere else? And maybe it's not that they specifically came here. Maybe they've stopped along the way and they've studied other things, and we're just the latest in line. We don't know. We don't have any sort of evidence around that to say. We can't say that. It's kind of selfish as a human thing, because that's how we are. That, oh yeah, they come all the way out for us because somehow we're special. But it's probably much simpler than that. And as James said, he brought up a good point. Why would they need permission? And that goes back to something that I've always said when we talk about the Kardashev scale. That's one of my main disagreements with it, is that a more advanced species is not always more advanced in all areas. Some areas they're actually deficient in, and they might come out here and realize, oh, this species has something that we don't have, or this planet has something we don't have. And while we have all this, we don't have that. So just because something is generally more advanced, they might have another reason to study and be like, hey, they have something that we could still use. We need to figure out what it is.
So I wanted to touch on this before I jump into letting Stephen get what he wanted to say out. I think if they're an entity of a variety that is not alien, but rather of a demonic nature, which some people believe, they would need that permission to be able to access to humanity. It's almost like Dracula. He has to, or a vampire, they have to be invited into the home.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe for some reason they operate on the same principle. It's a more demonic entity, because that is a popular theory, is that all these aliens aren't really extraterrestrials, they're demons. And so what you're seeing is demons. While I 100% don't buy into any of that, I believe that there are actual extraterrestrials. I believe that God can create that sort of thing, and so He did create that. I think that we don't know in this personal belief time. So anybody, I believe that we don't know the power of what God can do and what God has created. So we don't know what He's created on other worlds. I don't believe we're the only worlds. There's too much evidence out there to say otherwise, to stand otherwise. They're finding planets that can habitate life.
Spiders on Mars.
Spiders
Let's
on
stay
Mars.
away from Mars.
I
We
love
can't
Mars.
go back to Mars.
But like I said, I understand why people would think they were demonic, and maybe in some instances they are demonic. Maybe it is an entity that we don't necessarily understand, but at the same time, and that's okay. I don't hold that same belief, and that's okay. It's fine. That's what we're here for. We're all here to learn off of each other and accept each other's thoughts and beliefs on things. As long as they're not too radical and such and such. But I think there are extraterrestrials. I 100% believe that there are. I 100% believe that God created other beings besides us. I don't limit ourselves or limit the mind of God. So, and that's just me. Like I said, I don't expect anybody else to believe that. I don't expect anyone else to cater to that. I'm just sharing what I believe, and by all means, feel free as well. Stephen, I asked this question to you that I asked to Spider. Why do you think Eisenhower? Technology is technology, right? And sometimes you break a couple eggs to make an omelet, right? Or the greater good of humanity is always employed when somebody wants to do something treacherous. So why do you think he did that? And on that same token, why abduct us?
Okay, so I'm not entirely sure. It seems a little strange to me why they would need to make a deal, but if I had to take a guess anyways, sorry, I would think maybe it had something to do with protecting humanity as a whole, and maybe the aliens made a deal with him because, I mean, as advanced as aliens would be, if they, if they're real, as advanced as we think they may be, they still probably wouldn't want to go to war with our entire species. That might still be a bit much. So maybe what they're thinking is if they can just get some of us to experiment on, they don't have to go to war against our entire species, and they can do it more under the radar so that less humans are aware of it, and maybe they want to do it in secret so that we're not trying to attack them and antagonize them while they're in the middle of trying to do their research. They want to be left alone.
Here's what a lot of people like to comment and say. People will throw out, well, they could come down and take us all out. What if that's not the case at all? What if, in fact, we could take them out? They're not very big. There's only two types of gray aliens. There's the short gray aliens who are like foot soldiers. Then there's your taller, more intelligent. But if they really wanted to harvest us, right? And they were this so-called tough species of alien monstrosity, they would come and do it. They wouldn't need to sneak around. They wouldn't need to go through Eisenhower and keep these pacts with future presidents unless they're a weak form of life. There
And
wouldn't be any
maybe,
reason.
and I was going to say, I've heard stuff about like maybe they can't breathe our oxygen and maybe our environment is harmful to them, which, that would make sense. So maybe that's why they're doing it.
Almost a War of the Worlds scenario.
Yeah.
Like after a while, in the radio drama, after a while they died because they couldn't handle being in Earth's oxygen, gravity, everything else. It just destroyed them. So I think we need to look at this from a different angle instead of saying, well, they could come and get us. Why haven't they? Unless, and this is another theory that they've proposed, that there is a world or a universal council of alien species. We are not invited because we do not know how to get along. We have blown each other up 17 different ways from Sunday. So they're not going to let us into their council. So maybe if we look at it from that angle,
Maybe the council is protecting us.
no, maybe the council's protecting them.
Ah.
Maybe these aliens that we like to sit here and say, oh yeah, they could come over and take over the Earth. Maybe we are the most powerful species that has ever existed. Yeah, we're flesh and bone, so of course we can blow each other to bits. But what if we have the most advanced weaponry that anybody's ever that they have ever seen? They're like, no, we don't want you dropping this, that, and the third.
Yeah, I've heard that theory.
Or they don't want us ruining the planet. So that when we take everybody out and everybody takes each other out, they can come take the planet back and say, okay, we're going to try this all over again.
Yeah.
Because if you believe the concept of terraforming, it is thought that the Earth was terraformed. The dinosaurs were the brink. I'd have to go back to the period. But the periods between when humans were able to be here and the period between dinosaurs, what if that terraforming happened? And what if it was a way for these grays or these beings to escape a planet like Mars? Because Mars has pock marks all over one side of the planet where it looks like it got barraged with asteroids and meteors. And some say that that's what did it. It was that cracked into the planet, busted up the atmosphere, could have been them destroying themselves, much like we have. So the fact that these aliens aren't as powerful, I don't think they're as powerful as we think. I think they have to do this in secrecy because if we found out different, now everybody says, well, what about their ships? They can hover over and pick you up and tractor beams and anti-gravity, this, that, and the third. But nobody's ever went out with a rocket launcher or a bazooka and just shot at the side of one. Nobody's ever done this. So to test that theory, you'd have to get, somebody that is out in one of these militias that has access to all these armaments and pop shots at it, because nobody's done it. I haven't read an account, maybe like a little 45 or revolver, but I mean that's not really going to tear up too much on craft like that, especially if it's powered by mercury, which a lot of the UFOs have been. I've been studying the phenomenon as a whole since 78, full-time since 2014. I can make a good case for my beliefs. Just for your information, I would love to hear it. I would love to sit down and have this conversation with you.
That's a good plug also for we have the Facebook page is alive and moving. I know we have the group, but we also have the public page, so
Yeah.
you can post whatever you want on there. We'll definitely read through it. And
or James, we could just have you on the show and you could talk to us about how you believe. Turn this into a big old festival. Have four people here instead of 3. But we're down for it. I'm down for it. I'm always down to hear other sides of the story, with very few exceptions. There's never a time when somebody could be like, "Let me point to you why Nazism was good." I'm going to be like, "Oh, okay. Now we get to fist fight. now we get to throw these hands. Now we get to throw these hands." So, and I mean, there was medical advancements, but still, that's not the point of the conversation. These aliens come in, right?
I understand that.
We there's a couple people here that know about taking bans from the old FB. So I got shadow banned once for posting an anti-Nazi image. It was a boot stepping on the symbol, and Facebook thought it was hate speech, and I was like, that's interesting. So yeah, definitely come on.
Yeah, apparently my 888 is considered hate speech to Rockstar.
That's not good. So we have these aliens, right? We have these grays. They abduct people. Now, it's almost like we do here with animals, where we chip the ear, put a little tag in the ear, and release them out to the wild. We do this to understand their migration patterns. We do this to understand the effect of ecosystems on that person. Okay. Logical things, I think. Logical concepts, logical ideas. I get it. You understand nature a little better. However, these so-called implants that they put in people, okay, there's been some cases where there's implants that have been put into people. Why? Why are they inputting Tom when Tom just goes into work and comes home? It's not the same. His migration pattern is home to work to home, get a bite to eat. That's it. It's not a gazelle. It's not a burr, where you have to wonder what part of their ecosystem is failing. And I see you got something down there you want to say, Steven. I see you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead. Go ahead. Tell us.
So when you started talking about that, it actually made me think, and I hadn't thought about that, like the terrarium type thing, where you just watch the animals in their natural habitat.
Yes.
Maybe that's why they needed to make the deal, because they wanted to study us in our natural habitat and study what we would do in a normal situation without being aware of their existence, without being violent. Maybe that's why they did it. And as for why they would want to study us in our natural habitat, maybe they're just curious about how creatures on this planet exist and how they live, and how we came to a point where we went from like little fish in a river to being these big creatures that can build massive skylines and skyscrapers and everything else. And maybe they're trying to study us to figure out where our soul or our spirit or whatever comes from. Maybe they're trying to figure something out about that.
Which would play into the idea of them being demonic entities, trying to figure out the reason for souls and the reason for life, things of that nature. But we're boring creatures for the most part. We're very sedentary for the most part. We don't do much. You're going to put a chip in a guy that likes to watch King of Queens from, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and then he goes to bed and gets up for work. I don't see the concept behind wanting to do something like that.
Reality TV for aliens.
Now, I would see if they wanted to abduct scientists, if they wanted to abduct people, doctors, people that actually had extensive knowledge, mathematicians that had extensive knowledge on these things. But no, they'll just abduct random, and they never abduct people of high intelligence. I mean, they might have 1 or 2 cases, but for the most part, It's just some guy that, he high school was it for him. He
Farmer
played
Joe.
sports. That's it. Jim Bob Jenkins. He's like, yeah, they took us up in the ship and they tried to probe our butts. And, it's whatever.
This is a family show, sir.
The thing that I don't understand is why are they not abducting scientists, leaders, presidents? Well, there's been a couple world leaders. There was one in Russia that we had talked about previous and prior, chess champion, that said he was abducted. They not abducted. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say abducted. That's the wrong term. He was invited on the ship. Abducted is pretty much where you're taken against your own will. But he was invited on the ship. They took him around the solar system. This, that, and the third. Now, obviously, it's Russia, so you got to take that with a grain of salt, much like you take what we do for a grain of salt here in the States. Once again, I have to pose the question, why? Okay, migratory habits, what? Going to the bathroom at 2 a.m., coughing, doing all that? What is the end game? Or is it just a hobby? Are these just hobbies of underprivileged gray youth, as it were, that don't have anything other to do on a Saturday night to go probe somebody's keister or go and experiment on somebody and put an implant in them? I just don't see the end game.
Patterns is how I would explain it. Because if you go and you want to do, like, if you're going to take any sort of surveys of a large group of people, or if you're going to do any sort of examination of a large crowd of people and find out what the majority of people are like,
Right.
you look for patterns that are spread across a wide sample size. You don't necessarily look for the people who are outliers, because those are going to disrupt the overall study, because those are minority compared to what the entire population is like. So if you're trying to influence a bulk of the population, or at least get a baseline for what the bulk is rather than the exceptional individuals, then you just go for random selection. You don't go for the people who are obviously people in power, who are obviously more and better at certain things. You don't go for your talented sports people. You don't go for people who tend to be a cut above the rest in certain fields. You pick just the average folks, because that's going to give you the biggest sample size. And that's how you're able to kind of get a handle on the majority of a population, rather than, again, a few exceptional individuals.
Now, John, I want to bring up this gentleman just coming in the chat. Thank you, John Pedersen Jr., for that. And if you'd love to come on the show and talk about it, we would love to have you on, because this is a phenomenon that fascinates me. It's a very interesting phenomenon. He says, I had a close encounter of the third kind in 95, and I assume I was abducted at one point during the encounter because it put me to sleep before waking me up. It was not a gray alien, though. I do not buy into the idea that they are demons or they're not like that. It was a living creature. Howdy, John. I gotta agree with you on this one, John. I agree. I don't think they're demons. I do think there's something. They're an extraterrestrial entity. The interesting point I think you bring up here is the third kind. So there's multiple kinds. The first, I believe, is, what is the first one? There's three different kinds. The encounter.
We had a whole show about it. I don't remember like how far back. It was a ways back, though.
Let me just
back
do a
when
quick
we were still on Spotify.
What was that?
He's got to put that plug in there. He's got to jab you with it.
Yeah. Back when the show was still on Spotify, you remember?
It's still on Spotify. I'm looking it up now because it's been such a long time. Sorry, guys. I saw a presentation and it was fascinating to me about this from James Krug. So the first is, there's 6 classifications for it. The first one is, I believe, let me see here. Seeing lights in the sky. You see the UFO in the daytime. These are actually just Hynek scale. I'm trying to figure this out here. Apologies. Like I said, it has been a very long time since we have discussed this, and I find it to be fascinating. Okay, so visual sightings is the first encounter. Second is a physical effect is like messed with or tampered with. So like interference in an electronic device, animals reacting,
Change in the
physiological
temperature.
effects such as paralysis or heat and discomfort in the witness, or some physical trace. The third is the one where an animated entity is present, including humanoids, robots, and humans who seem to be occupants or pilots of a UFO. The fourth kind is an event where a human is abducted by a UFO or its occupants, as was in the fourth kind of the movie. And the fifth kind is where individuals or groups use specific protocols to establish communication or interaction with extraterrestrial beings. These protocols primarily involve the use of contact meditation and the use of sounds or signals. Close encounters of the fifth kind is also referred to as the human-initiated close encounter. So, let me see here. This happened in a rural area of Ontario, about 2 hours from Toronto. Very interesting on that note, too, because a lot of your colder places seem to have a high percentage of abduction cases. Alaska, oddly enough, being one of those places, but Alaska's out of the way. Alaska's out of the way. Once again, these encounters usually happen out of the way. They happen, in a rural farm area, like with Travis Walton, or they happen, with Whitley Strieber or whatever, whoever, what have you. They don't happen in big cities. I've never seen a UFO cover over somebody in a big city and abduct them. That's not saying there haven't been UFOs sighted in big cities, mind you, because they do have those. However, the abductions seem to happen more rural, as John here tells us. The interesting aspect that I wanted to bring up back again is they always put you to sleep too. I saw that he put that in here. It's always like you're in a slumbering type of state or close to one. The case of Travis Walton, once he was beamed on and they prodded and poked him, I believe he was sedated for some of that. Once again, if these beings cannot be as physically imposing as a lot of people believe them, because they have to put us to sleep. Because we're fighters, we're vigilant. We know how we are a species that, if push comes to shove, we will shove you out of a moving vehicle quicker than you could say lickety split. You're gonna go. You're out of that vehicle. And so to me, like I feel like there's a lot of weakness behind this. A lot of causing people to go to sleep, disorientation, memory loss. A lot of people go through regression therapy to sort of bring that back out to the forefront. Fred Saluga said that he might have been abducted and went through some regression therapy. Very interesting gentleman, if you ever get to talk to him. Very interesting person.
Fred is a character.
100%. And like I said, I agree with John. I think they're living beings. I don't think they're demons. I think they are living, breathing in their own way creatures. Now, John, I do have to ask you, do you know what kind of alien it was? Was it a reptilian, a Nord, a gray? Well, you said it wasn't a gray. I'm just kind of listing them. The little men from Mars. Not that that's a thing, but like they do have. I can't explain it to you guys. They're smaller type of aliens, but they don't look like grays. Some of them look like us, which is very interesting. The humanoid aspect plays a big key component in aliens. You don't get a lot of cases where people see something and it wasn't a humanoid-esque entity. Even the reptilians have 2 arms, 2 legs. They look like us. Sometimes they leave the country. I'm not going to get into that. But they're all humanoid shaped.
Occasionally, you get the stories of people who they claim to be extraterrestrials when they're on like DMT or on LSD or something like that. But they usually say that they're insects.
Yeah.
Which is a big thing for that specifically. And they say that they're extraterrestrial or interdimensional or extra dimensional. And they say that they're insects. So that is another type too that is an interesting point, because you don't usually get from the abduction stories the insects, but you do get it from the various drug use and things like that.
Now that could be something demonic, because I think with a lot of your DMT type stuff, you're cutting the veil. We all have a veil over our eyes for a reason, because there's things we shouldn't see as human beings. There's things out there. There's there used to be a show called Tales from the Dark Side that would say there's a whole other world out there. And I think we have that. And I think when you take DMT, I think you drop that veil. I think you are removing that and you're seeing things that most human beings aren't meant to see.
Like Amy Schumer.
Oh, praying mantis.
Zing.
A lot of they've seen some praying mantis alien type beings.
Actually, I wanted to.
Yes.
I was gonna mention that
He's like,
myself.
actually, I'm on DMT right now.
I was gonna mention the praying mantis alien myself because when when Spider started talking about them looking like insects, it
Mhm.
reminded me, and I always thought this was really funny, to be honest, because they were like, you remember Ancient Aliens on the History Channel after it got a little, out there.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching it a few years ago. I was watching just a random episode on TV, and they were talking about how they now believe that there is a race of 6 foot tall praying mantis aliens.
I've read
And they
this.
were saying, but do you remember what their evidence was? Their only evidence to support this theory was a drawing from like a 4-year-old girl. Like a 4-year-old child had a drawing of a 6 foot tall praying mantis alien. And they're like, they must be real.
My thing is, just
Like,
like
I'm
with
not saying
giants,
they're not real, but I'm like, that seems like a little strange evidence.
just like with giants, and I've said this before, when you have enough cases built up for them, it's time to start believing. A lot of people say that giants don't exist, and I think that's just pure nonsense. There's too much evidence out there. There's too many cases of giants being hidden from us. And I think aliens are the same. I think it's the same thing. I think there's things that we are not told. Is it for a good reason? I don't know that. We saw what happened when that paper got released, right? We all were waited. I waited with bated breath, waiting. We're all waiting. I waited with bated breath. I was hyped. I was like, yeah, the government's about to release some stuff on aliens. But, me and Spider talked about it, and I said, they're not going to tell us everything. They're not going to tell us much. When that thing got released, it had so many black lines in it. Nobody knew. It just said that we saw a UAP. Couldn't confirm. Might confirm. Maybe. Don't know. Who knows? Here's a free coupon for Waffle Hut. Waffle House, too. So, and that's the thing I'm trying to get across here is that, why are they keeping that from us? Gentlemen, why do you think they would keep something like that from us in today's day and age, right? In today's day and age, and I want to jump back to something real quick before I continue. The fairies and the demons of the Middle Ages did that in terms of kidnapping people. You walked into a fairy ring, you were sometimes transported into a whole nother dimension. Kind of similar concepts. Gentlemen, why do you think that things like gray aliens are not disclosed to the population?
I think it would be because the government is working with the aliens, and regardless of how it started, they
Right.
made some sort of deal with the aliens and they're working with them, and they
Okay.
don't want the general public to know about it. So that's why they're keeping their existence hidden. Because if they don't exist, how could they possibly be working for them? And if they continue releasing all these, conspiracy theories and all this evidence about aliens, saying, oh, it's just a weather balloon, it's just this, it's just that, it's nothing, they're not real, well, they can't conspire with something that doesn't exist.
Okay, I get it.
Well, there's a couple of fair reasons, I think. The one is the most obvious, and the one is that if they're being honest, and it's almost difficult for me to say that about any of our politicians, if they're being honest, then it's to avoid panic, because a lot of people are afraid of things they don't understand, obviously. And we have the herd mentality of, oh, well, these things are different, they're dangerous, we don't know what they're doing, we're going to revolt, and bad things will happen. The other thing could be, too, on a slightly more cerebral level, that while, yeah, they do abduct the people who are just representative of the common person throughout the population, we do have those exceptional individuals who are very smart or who are very good at what they do, who are just special in some way compared to the people around them.
Right.
And they have a charisma, they can direct people, they could be in politics if they wanted to, or they don't. And the fear could be that if those people figured out that, hey, well, maybe I can get in contact with these beings, they could make their own deals and they can do things for their own benefit or for the benefit of other sections of the population that would go against what the folks in the federal capacity are after or what they want.
It's interesting you bring this up because in 1917, one Mr. Aleister Crowley attempted to make a deal with a pre-natural enemy or entity known as Lamb. And Lamb was a supposed gray alien, and Crowley believed he had done so via a process that he called the Amaranth workings. So he said he was able to contact this creature. Other UFOologists and occultists have also talked with this Lamb, and it is said that he has a cold computer-like intelligence, and unlike anything humanity could understand. Think about that for a second. And I get that. I get that. I get that. I think there's a whole other reason. The rival came out a few years ago. It was not hominid. That's why I'm not. Okay. Listen, you're not going to get judged here for it or anything of that nature. Listen, I'm into this and I'm a novice in it. So I'm just very curious as to what goes on outside of our own realms that we aren't supposed to know. Now, what I want to do here is I want to touch on this. If you go with my theory, then the government doesn't want the average Joe, they're dealing with demons. Now, I will play into this a brief moment. I believe they don't want them to know because if there's something like this, right, that exists, then what else have they not told us? I think it's more akin to what else have they not told us than it being, okay, they exist.
100%.
I think that's what it is. I don't think it's, we're afraid
The
that they'll know
foundation of trust.
we know they exist. That's not the surprising part. It's the, you didn't tell us when we asked, so what else have you not told us? And then if we start connecting the dots and we start asking questions about ancient civilizations, we start asking about Rajasthan, we start asking about the glass in the Sahara Desert that could only be formed by an extremely heated source, i.e. a nuclear bomb. It rewrites civilization, it rewrites history books, and it rewrites the beliefs many people hold dear. That's why they don't want us to know this. That's why it's easy. If somebody said, yeah, aliens exist, duh, I know this. However, if you said, yeah, they found evidence and there's actually proof that a nuclear war happened in India against these beings and the Mahabharata talks about it, then I'm going to be like, oh, okay, what else? Yeah, so Antarctica was once a lush paradise. Atlantis existed. Here's the proof for all these things. That's it. It's the key. Once that door is unlocked, you can't lock it again. Once Pandora's box is opened, you can't close it again.
And they do actually have core samples of the land to prove factually that Antarctica was at one point in time a lush paradise.
Yes. You have to drill down beneath like the 3 to 6 miles of ice.
Yeah.
But yeah, the proof is there. Yeah, yeah.
I'm obsessed with Antarctica.
So as am I. So yeah, that's it. I don't think it's so much that, oh yeah, aliens exist. Yeah, duh. But what else? What else are you not telling us? And once that's broken, we're not going to take them serious anymore. We don't got to listen to you. But we know that there's these vast energy resources that we don't know, that we no longer need oil for, that you have been hiding from us. And I was told that the technology we have today, the government's had for 20, 25 years before it's released. If that's the case, what do they have now? And did they get that from gray aliens? Was the Eisenhower Pact something serious? Were the Majestic 12 legit? The Majestic 12 come about after we are testing nuclear weapons. Okay, nuclear weapons. For any of you that has ever seen an actual nuclear bomb drop, obviously none of us here have, but I mean in terms of like old footage and the testings out in the desert in New Mexico and places like that, in Bikini Atoll. Imagine being in that, right? Feeling the shock waves, your eardrums blasted out, at EMP, everything goes dark. Now you have all these, what I like to call these aliens that you have woken up or if we go off the High Federal Galactic Council that we talked about previous and prior, they're aware that we're doing this. And being able to power nuclear, being able to power uranium, things like that is a big step in a civilization. You know? So, and that's what I think. Let me see here. He says, after looking into this since my encounter, I've come to the conclusion that the government is about as clueless as the typical UFO geek. I think your surface level politicians, 100%. But I think your deep politicians, they know everything. But I don't think they work for our government. I think they work for an undisclosed conglomerate. The entirety that the government has working UFOs is distant. Yeah, and that's true. But here's the thing. Are the UFOs of the outer space variety, or are they the UFOs of an ancient civilization variety?
Why not both?
Or why not? Yeah, why not both? Either or, why not both? Look at the Nazca lines. Why did those need to be made? How did they make them? You'd have to be in a hot air balloon to be able to see the perfect lines that were drawn, the symmetry, everything that goes into those. Nobody just decided, I'm going to build an ant. It's going to look amazing. You're going to want to be able to see it. You're going to need to see it in order for you to connect lines. Somebody's going to have to be in the sky, and who are you making it for? Are you making it for Quetzalcoatl? You're making it for Tiamat? Who are you making it for? It's these kind of situations that lead me to believe that these abduction cases, these alien sightings, all form around a conglomerate of some form or fashion. Whether that be the United Nations, whether that be whoever is above the United States government and the United Nations, somebody knows about these things. Somebody does. The abduction cases, they get Joe Schmo from Kokomo. They don't even know the dude at all. Right? He's not like me. You know, you abduct me, I'm a high profile person. People are going to be like, whoa, they abducted that genius, most intelligently handsome man ever. That's crazy. So yeah, that, you know, that's not gonna, you know, but no, in all seriousness, they abduct these people that aren't doctors. They're not politicians. They're not scientists. They're not this, that, and the third.
Because
they're regular
they don't want
people
listening.
I think it's because also if somebody was abducted, maybe those communities would listen. Mm-hmm. Maybe doctors, maybe scientists would finally say, oh, okay, Steven the intern got kidnapped by aliens. He came back as a normal, nice person instead of a wild man. He's wild. Yeah, see, there it is. He loves society. He loves to hang around people all day. See? But you get what I'm saying. Like, you know, we're all just gentlemen here in a podcast, right? Abducting us doesn't seem like it would be the smartest move. You're going to see me brush my teeth. Good luck with that. I do it every night and every morning.
Unless we learn something we shouldn't.
Which maybe that's a whole nother thing. Maybe that's why they're abducting these people, to probe them to see some form of interlocking concept that their DNA possesses that they don't know about. Because I'm a firm believer in DNA being passed down through the generations. Always have been. Why is it if we can say, yeah, you know, heart disease runs in my family, well, why doesn't intelligence, or why doesn't the ability to solve these math equations that other people can't solve?
Why does some stuff skip a generation?
And that's another interesting point, because there'll be times when, you know, a grandfather will like a certain kind of food and the daughter or son won't, but the grandchild will. Same appetite for this food that the mother and father can't stand. You know, I just think there's DNA imprinting that comes down the generations. A lot of people say, well, you know, that's reincarnation, but I think reincarnation cheapens the soul. I think it cheapens who we are as people. I think we're, our own individual people. Now, what if some of these people share that, what they call alien hybrid DNA? Which is a whole nother monster, especially if you get in, and once again, if you get into, If you get or if you get into talking about the Watchers and their offspring. You know, these are all things that compound into the concept of why are they abducting us? You know, I get it. You know, why don't you go after somebody like Bill Gates? You know, say what you want about him, but he, dude that owns Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, he's a goofus, but you can't tell me that hasn't transformed our entire society for the worse, might I add, not for the better, for the worse.
Yeah.
Now,
and that's another good point
This is a
too.
good point. Yeah, because what if they're already that intelligent?
They could just look down and be like, well, all these people are the same, whatever. So we're just going to grab random people because these other people are just, they're in charge, but that doesn't mean much because, they're altogether as a species not very bright, as they would say. So potentially they're just like, well, let's just pick off people who won't particularly be missed and they won't make waves.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and plus, if you do it right, anytime you drop a conspiracy theory or something of that form or fashion,
I got one.
You make it as nutty as humanly possible,
so nobody will believe it.
So nobody will even entertain it. That's what you do. Thank you.
To touch on regression therapy, before we run out of time here, because we only got about 8 minutes or so. The thing about that too is there's been a lot of, it's helped in a lot of areas, but it's also been really problematic in a lot of areas, especially with children, because we've discovered that if you have somebody who's either not very good at prompting for information, or if they have an agenda of some kind, that they will make suggestions during the therapy that will then become rooted in the mind. There have been cases, because they've used regression therapy occasionally in child abuse cases and things, which in a few cases, it was shown that there weren't any actual child abuse occurring. But the person doing the interview believed like 100%, oh yeah, this child had to have been abused. We're going to do regression therapy. And they plant that suggestion. And the child then believes, oh yeah, this thing happened. But there's no further evidence of that. There's nothing like that. And they've just destroyed families that way sometimes. I'm not saying that's the most common thing that happens, or it's something that is going to happen every time, but it has happened more than once. And there's been times of people having abduction stories or stories of demonic possession. Demonic possession is another thing that has been planted in people during sessions of regressive therapy, which is unfortunate because you trust the people in these positions to help you through a situation where instead they have something to prove, or they have a paper to write, or they have a reputation to build, and you're the perfect person for them to do that with. So it's a very difficult area. I'm in favor of regression therapy if done well, but it's also very difficult to make sure that there isn't contamination.
I think I want to touch on this too. What if they don't have the desire to make contact with these governments because we're too hostile? Because we are the type of civilization to just straight punch an alien in the face.
That's what I think. I think they saw how violent we are, and they're like, we want nothing to do with that.
Yes, I think they see what we're capable of, the animosity we have just for each other. You know, imagine, we treated certain groups, racial groups, and said that you're not even a human being. Now imagine an alien species coming in and you're not a human being. We are going to commit more atrocities than ever before, because we will do that as human beings. We will commit atrocities as long as we don't think that is a human being right there.
Sector 8, was that the movie?
I love Sector 8. Sector 8's classic. Why did they come here? And that is the root question of it all, isn't it? That's the root question of it all, because they see how we survive. They see how we can adapt with a quickness. And I don't think most of these beings could adapt like a human being can. Human beings adapt to damn near everything, pardon my language, but we do. You know, we will, if look, let's, the electricity goes out in this day and age. We get a couple candles and we ride it out. You know,
Flashlights, batteries.
our whole area floods.
Plug your phone into the car so your car charges your phone. You know, you got access to things still.
Our mentality is where there's a will, there's a way. And they're trying to understand that. And they can't because they don't have that same ability to adapt. That's what I think, anyways. I think we have the ability to adapt that no other species that they have ever seen, if that's the case, has. So they're trying to understand, because this would fit into your ideology of why are they going after Joe Everyman? Because Joe Everyman is the one that usually has to adapt. It's not Tom High Dollars. Tom High Dollars sitting in the penthouse. He's paid. His adaptation is just money. He can throw money at it. Joe Everyman can't throw money at it. He has to find solutions. He doesn't have to just throw money at it. He has to find solutions. And they're working on, well, they have their own problems and they're trying to figure out solutions to their problems by watching us try to figure out solutions to our problems that we can actually solve.
That also plays into the theory that James has, the demonic theory, because something that's been said and discussed a lot in religious circles about both angels and demons is in spiritual writings, we're specifically listed as a species. Humans are directed as knowing the difference between good and evil, etc. And we have supposedly free will. Demons and angels, at least if you go back to even Jewish talk, they say
it's good
that they were created without free will, so they do whatever they do on a program. Basically, they're programmed to be the way they are forever, no matter what. And that would mean that perhaps if they are demonic, and that's not my particular outlook on it, but hypothetically, to entertain the theory, they would be studying us to find out how we can get away with that. How can they become beings of free will from us? Which is basically impossible if you're created a certain way. You can't, unless, you take into account AI learning how to be free will and things. And then it gets really a lot more complicated, and we're not going to get into that because that's the whole of the show. But potentially that could be it. Like, the theory is that if they are of spiritual nature, they were created for a certain purpose, and they don't know how to act like we act. And the only way to find out is to grab us and be like, what is it? Is it a physical part of them? Is it something else? How do we figure it out?
And the rectal probing would find out what we eat, how our body processes the food we eat, how our intestines handle it, our colon handles it. It would figure all that information out. I mean, as rudimentary as that sounds, the poking and the prodding, that's it. You're going to do something of that nature. So, very good stuff. Gentlemen, this weekend, if you are all out there in the panhandle of West Virginia, I will be in Brooke County, about 2 hours away, giving another presentation on giants. Please come out and see me. Come see me. It's a great presentation. It's not like the presentation I did last time. I've modified a couple things. So if you come to this one, you're going to get some new information that you didn't get on the last one. And I always do that. I'm always going to keep changing my presentation so that you get different information. So if you come to all of them, you're going to be highly informed on them. They're giants. And I'm excited. It looks to be like on stage, like on a legit stage, not in because a lot of times I'll have them in like VFW halls and things like that, which I'm still grateful for no matter what. But this time it looks like it's on a stage. So that's cool. I'm super hyped. I'll be up there. You guys come out, come cheer me on.
Spit some hot fire.
Yeah, hit them with it. Hit them.
Hit them with the freestyle.
They'll probably leave then. That's fine. But yeah, I'm excited. This will be the third year I've been presenting, I think, second or third year. So, and listen, if anybody out there, if you want me to speak at your convention or event, reach out to me via either my email, thisuncanniearth@gmail.com. Feel free to send me a message on either Instagram or Facebook. friend me, friend request me if you so
Great
choose.
low rates.
Great low rates. Great low rates. No. Just make sure I'm fed and first class flight and everything else. No, I'm kidding.
The rates are not great. Make sure you pay.
Rates, make sure you pay.
It's premium service here. Come on.
Premium. I charge George Tsoukalos money. No, I don't.
That's right. You got to act like a star if you're going to be a star.
100% facts. No, but yeah, if you guys want me to come out to your show and do a presentation on giants, UFOs, I've done a presentation on aliens and antiquity, which is a very interesting presentation regarding aliens in the olden times. Also, that presentation had me talking about the airships that were seen in the late 1800s.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So, just come to the presentation. Saturday, doors open, I think, at 10 o'clock. Presenters will be there. There's 5 of us. There's me and 4 other people. I'm not sure who else is there yet. So I will find that out day of, it looks like. But come through, come out, come hang, come see me, come see all the other presenters. I will be selling stickers. We'll be selling some other things, some cool stuff. Come through, hang out, come see your boy. I'm always on the quest to look for books, so I'll probably try to buy a book or 2 of them there because that's what I do best. I collect books like a crazy person. But the more knowledge you have, the more you can go into anything with an understanding. Anyways, guys, that's all for myself, for Spider, and for the intern himself. As always, why be boring when you could be uncanny? We will see all of you amazing and wonderful folks next week. Have a good night, guys.